You are a quadruple murderer who slaughtered innocent children. That is your identity. That is the identity you will carry for the remainder of your life behind prison walls, confined to a 4-foot by 7-foot cell until your final breath.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Court Bench. In November 2018, the upscale community of Colts Neck, New Jersey was rocked by a horror story that felt more like a movie script than reality. A successful tech entrepreneur, Keith Caneiro, was found shot to death on his own lawn. Inside his burning mansion lay his wife, Jennifer, and their 2 young children, Jesse and Sophia, all brutally murdered. For years, the lead suspect was Keith's own brother and business partner, Paul Caneiro. Paul tried to frame it as a targeted attack on his family business, even setting fire to his own home to play the victim. But today, the mask finally slips. We're watching Judge Mark Lemieux systematically dismantle Paul's lies before handing down a sentence that ensures he will never see the sun as a free man again. And this judge does an excellent job of voicing all of the people's thoughts and opinions, putting all that this guy has done into his face. So let's go ahead and jump into this clip where the judge is initially just pretty much going to lay bare all that Paul's done right in his face. So let's jump in.
There was an avalanche of evidence pointing to defendant being a callous, heartless, brutal killer of his brother, his sister-in-law, and 2 innocent kids. It's not a tragedy. It's a flat-out killing of innocent people. Tragedy is a much different word. He clearly planned these killings in the hours prior to driving the 20 minutes to Keith and Jennifer's Colts Neck house. Defendant's actions were calculated, from turning off his own surveillance cameras, to choosing ammunition that would cause massive destruction, to loading the gun cartridges with bullet after bullet after bullet, while in his basement of his house, only to leave his house in darkness with an evil, merciless eye to assassinate and annihilate an entire family from this earth. Defendant's plan took shape during that 20-minute drive to include shutting off the power in the victim's home once he arrived. That action describes a premeditated, targeted act of violence designed to disable home security systems and power, to create vulnerability, and to ensure that the defendant had the advantage against his brother and his family. Once the defendant disabled the power, he deliberately and tactically waited outside for his brother to execute the attack. Defendant then shot his brother multiple times, including an execution-style shot to the head, a coup de grace shot, as Keith's immobile body laid face down on the ground. It is clear to this court the defendant acted with a depraved heart, showing no regard for human life, let alone his brother's life. After extinguishing his brother's life, defendant set his sights on his dead brother's innocent and unaware family. While defendant is the only one that could tell us the timeline of the massacre inside this home, it would appear defendant set his sights on Jennifer, Keith's wife. Unknowing what had happened outside, Jennifer left the bed that her and her husband were just in, due to hearing these gunshots that ended her husband's life, and went towards the front door to see what happened. It seems that while there was no power to Jennifer's house, there must have been some sort of lighting. Or, referring to Exhibit S-170 from the trial, the FLIR 1 Pro thermal camera in defendant's possession, depicting the heat sensor that would show heat coming off the bodies of Jennifer, Jesse, and Sophia, and that would just make you a tactical killer. I say this because when defendant entered Jennifer's home, he shot her in the head with precision. That did not occur without any form of light or other sensory device. The gunshot wounded Jennifer's head, tracked front to back. Jesse, age 11, Sophia, age 8, nearby, must have heard the gunshot that wounded their mother, or the multiple gunshots that killed their father or both, because both of them left their bedrooms, and that's when the defendant potentially shot at Jesse, according to the evidence.
I mean, as I told you guys, this judge does a really good job of just laying out plain what this murderer did. Because to be honest, it's appropriate. Like, it really is appropriate for this type of situation, because it's crazy what this guy did, and putting it all in his face and laying it out for everybody in the court to hear and understand truly what this guy did, and not just, any random murder, a thought out planned murder, even to the point where this guy used thermal imaging to locate these people, and then obviously act out what he did, even hunting his own niece and nephew in the dark based on their, like, that's wild. That's crazy. This is something you'd hear out of a movie, like out of a horror movie. You as a person is hunting your niece and nephew with thermal imaging as if they're deer. But trust me when I say, guys, this judge is certainly not done. Let's go and jump back in.
Defendant then grabbed a knife and stabbed both Jesse and Sophia multiple times. Kids, innocent kids. They hadn't even had a chance to start their lives yet. We heard just about in this courtroom about all the life they had left to live. You stole it.
Again, excellent job by the judge laying out all what Paul Caneiro has actually done. And now we're going to switch over to the sentencing, where this judge, again, is going to pretty much just tell this guy directly, you're inhumane, you're a murderer, and you deserve to be punished to the highest degree, and deliver a punishment that I think is pretty appropriate for what this guy has done. So let's go ahead and switch over to that.
So with that being said, the court will impose the following sentence. Under indictment 19-02-0283, count 1, charging you with murder in violation of 2C11-3, I sentence you to the custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections to life with no possibility of parole. This was a Graves Act offense. There's a $100 VCCO penalty, a $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty, and a $30 law enforcement trading fund penalty. You have 2,745 days of jail credit. As to count 2, charging murder in violation of 2C11-3, a first-degree offense, I sentence you to the custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections for life without the possibility of parole. Again, to run consecutive to count 1. This is also a Graves Act offense. There's a $100 VCCO, $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty, and again, the same jail credit. Count 3, charging you with murder in violation of 2C11-3, a first-degree offense. I sentence you to the custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections for life with no possibility of parole. There's a $100 VCCO penalty and a $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty. Count 4, charging you with murder in violation of 2C11-3. I sentence you to the custody of the Commissioner of Department of Corrections for life without the possibility of parole. That's a $100 VCCO penalty and a $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty. Again, each one of those are consecutive to each other. As to count 7, aggravated arson in violation of 2C17-1A, a second-degree offense, I sentence you to the custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections for a period of 18 years, subject to the No Early Release Act, which means that you must serve 85% of that 18-year sentence. There's also on that offense, because it's a nearer offense, even though it's inapplicable, you would have a 3-year parole supervision if you were released, but that will never happen in this case. There's a $100 VCCO penalty, a $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty, and again, the same jail credit. The reason why for the $100 VCCO there is because that is for the Colts Neck residents. Count 8, aggravated arson in violation of 2C17-1A, a second-degree offense. I sentence you to custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections for a period of 18 years, subject to the No Early Release Act, meaning that you have to serve 85% of 18 years before you be eligible for parole. That is run consecutive to the 4 life terms that I just gave you. There's a $50 VCCO and a $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty. Again, the same jail credit. As to count 13, theft in violation of 2C20-3, a second-degree crime, I sentence you to the custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections for a period of 18 years, There's a $50 VCCO and a $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty. Again, so that will run consecutive to the 18 years I gave you on the arson and also the 4 life terms that I've given you. As to count 14, misapplication of entrusted property in violation of 2C 21-15, a second-degree crime, I sentence you to custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections for a period of 18 years. There's a $50 VCCO, a $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty, and that will run concurrent to count 13. Count 15, hindering your own apprehension for the murders in this case, in violation of 2C 29-3B1, a third-degree offense. I sentence you to custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections for a period of 4 years. There's a $50 VCCO, $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty. Again, that will run concurrent with the same jail credit. Count 16, hindering apprehension, dealing with the theft and the misapplication of entrusted property. In violation of 2C 29-3B1, a third-degree offense, I sentence you to the custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections for a period of 4 years. There's a $50 VCCO, a $75 safe neighborhood assessment penalty. Again, that is to run concurrent on all counts. Today, defendant's greed, manipulation, and selfish conduct ends. His address will forever be the Department of Corrections. His only reality is confinement, consequence, and accountability. Punishment is paramount, and the court imposes it without any hesitation. While defendant will not acknowledge his behavior and wrongdoing, a jury of his peers did. And this court now imposes a sentence that fully reflects the verdict and the gravity of these offenses. Although more than 7 years passed before this matter reached trial due to COVID, pretrial litigation, and the complexity of these proceedings, justice delayed is not justice denied. You are no longer Paul Caneiro. You are an intimate number in the Department of Corrections. You are a quadruple murderer who slaughtered innocent children. That is your identity. That is the identity you will carry for the remainder of your life behind prison walls, confined to a 4-foot by 7-foot cell until your final breath.
Man, I really like this judge. He really held nothing back, and when it came to sentencing, it didn't just deliver a sentence. He deliberately spoke to this person and told him, hey, this is your punishment for what you've done. So as you guys just heard, on May 19, 2026, Judge Mark Leminex officially ended the saga of Paul Caneiro, sentencing him to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. This follows a grueling trial where the jury found that Paul murdered his brother Keith, his sister-in-law Jennifer, and his young niece and nephew in a scheme to cover up years of embezzling money from the family business. In addition to the life terms he received extra years for arson and theft. Despite Paul's last-minute attempts to maintain his innocence and his defense team's claims of judicial frustration, the mountain of evidence, including the thermal camera and his own house fire, was too much to overcome. Paul Caneiro will now spend the rest of his life in a 4x7 cell, exactly as the judge promised. Justice for the Caneiro family was long delayed, but in the end, it was absolute. As always, guys, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this case in the comments below. What do you guys think of this judge? Did he do an excellent job of this trial and sentencing? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe. We're just about to get our first 1,000 subscribers, and we'll see you guys in the next one.